and welcome to the Health Benefits of Meditation by Holistic Wellness. Today's session is focused on the understanding of the effectiveness of heartfulness meditation on our sleep, physical health, and mental well being. Heartfulness is a small, simple, heart centered meditation practice aimed at achieving a state of balance in the heart and the mind. Well, I have been practicing heartfulness long before it was called so. I started meditating in 2015, but I have been attending sessions in the Children's Center ever since I was in second grade. And if I were to tell you how heartfulness has changed my perspective on life, juggling between college, school, extra classes, it was really difficult. But heartfulness meditation gave me that inner peace. And it has made me understand how important it is to declutter the mind. And I would be lying if I said that I meditate every day, but on days when I don't, I really miss it. Now, I think I can have Rutva share some of her experiences with heartfulness meditation.
Yeah, hi. It was wonderful to hear that you did from such a childhood. Like I just started before few months, 2 or 3 months back, but it was so nice. Like at the start, it was so tough for me to concentrate and sit for 5 minutes also. But nowadays, like I don't listen. I just sit for 2 hours, 3 hours, and I don't listen to anything. There are no thoughts, nothing, and I just sit and yeah, be with me. That's so wonderful to like. I just don't have words to express what I feel. It's just great, and it has bring so much of confidence, inner peace, calm. Like it's wonderful, wonderful. Yeah.
That's amazing. Rushali, do you have something to share with us?
Oh, I have so much to share. First of all, thank you so much for that wonderful, short and sweet introduction from both of you to how you feel, after meditation. I feel like I just need to tell everybody I started meditation in 2013. I was in the final year of my MBBS at that time when I had started. And I think from then to now, it's been quite the journey. But I can't tell you, I can't express in words the profound changes that I have observed and witnessed in myself, both internally and externally. Um, this form of meditation, our practice, our system, it's changed everything. My sleep has gotten better. My stress and anxiety levels are just out of the window now. I don't experience any levels of stress, and if I do, I'm able to cope with it better. I also feel like our heartfulness practice has helped me kind of handle just people and the world in a more profound way. You know, the when people are mean to you or rude to you, when you experience professional animosity between colleagues and friends or things like that, they just don't affect me anymore. I'm able to detach and keep it at a distance and accept it. It's really helped me cope with the ups and downs of life as well. I feel a lot more stable, a lot more at peace, just generally, on the inside and out. And I feel like because of that, my quality of life has improved. I feel a lot more disciplined because it makes you wake up. You know, you're told to wake up at a certain time and meditate. You're told to do certain things at a certain time. So I feel like I'm more disciplined. I feel like I'm a lot more organized than I used to be. But yes, Vatsala, I do agree with you that I don't think that I was also very regular when I was younger. But obviously now that I am a bit probably a bit more deep into my practice than I was about 5 or 6 years ago. The experience and the benefits I feel on a daily basis. I feel myself change. I feel my health getting better. I feel my mental state getting better. And I feel like these changes are spectacular when you experience it yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And I completely agree with you on the acceptance part. We learn to
Yeah,
accept people the way they are. So true.
absolutely. And I feel like, you just, I don't know how, but heartfulness meditation, the whole idea behind it is to expand your consciousness. And I feel like that really helps you. Um, as your consciousness expands, so does your understanding of people, of behavior, of life, that you can't put expectations on people. You can't do that. You shouldn't do that. And I think that you just accept people, like you said, for who they are, and that just kind of takes the pressure away. It takes the negativity away. And I think that's something that's really my biggest takeaway in terms of just daily interactions with people. Because you know we're only human, and we do get affected by uh, when we fight with somebody, when we have an argument with someone. It stays with you. But I think this heartfulness practice, the meditation practices, and the other cleaning practices help you kind of shake it off, and it just stops affecting you. And I think that's the biggest change that I have seen, um, you know life wise or health wise. It just keeps you so stable. It makes you feel so stable on the inside and out.
Yes, definitely. And not just acceptance of others, but also ourselves, how we are and
Absolutely.
how we are evolving. So, that is one thing that I have learned over the years, to accept how I am and to better myself. But not
Yeah.
being harsh to myself, but by loving myself and slowly progress.
Yeah, it's really about, like you said, slow and steady progress. uh, and you know our heartfulness guides always say that everyone's meditation and everyone's journey is different. So it's really wonderful to see um, yourself grow and change. And another wonderful practice that's a part of our heartfulness, sort of multiple practices that we have in a day, is journaling. I feel like that really helps, um, kind of,
Yes.
it helps me declutter my mind. It helps me put all the chaos in my mind onto paper. Also, during and before after meditation as well. And just generally, you are encouraged to journal and put your thoughts down, so you can reflect, upon it, and go through it later on in life, and you know realize the change for yourself, so you can see your own progress as time has gone by. So I feel like that journaling also helps me so much. I think I have like 3 full journals at this point, like
Oh,
written with my.
wow. That's
So,
amazing. Journaling
I
does
would be
help me.
also at that point. Like I would feel
yeah,
so much. I just love the way you both are explaining and saying.
yeah. Thank you. That's so sweet. But Rutva, like as somebody who's just started meditating this like past year, how do you like? What are the short-term changes that you have seen in your health?
I can feel like more relaxed and more calm. Like initially, when someone used to say something to me, someone used to be mean or rude to me, I used to just shout at them and without understanding anything. And now, like, I take some time and then understand what are they going through, and I just keep quiet and be kind to them. Like, it's
Yeah.
okay, let them shout. Like, they would also understand their mistakes, and that's the biggest change I have felt. Like, I understand
Wow,
so much to people and I be kind. Like
that's
they might
amazing.
also be going through something, and yeah, that is the major change in mind. And my confidence, it was like here, and now I'm like here. My confidence
That's
is,
amazing. That's awesome.
I feel
one point
so
one
confident
point I
about
would
myself.
like to add, like
Yeah,
I think seeing all 3 of you sharing your practice, one thing I think I'm feeling a bit unlucky is you got a very good early start to your meditation career. I started meditation fairly late, and I think you're all very lucky in that way, and it
Thank
really
you.
helps shape up your career in your
yeah.
younger days.
We are
All
so
the
Yes.
best.
blessed to have this in the very early stage.
Yes,
Yeah, definitely.
I'm so grateful for it. Absolutely.
All right. So with these discussions, let's move further in the session. And today's guest speaker, Dr. N. Uday Kumar, is here with us. Welcome, Dr. Uday.
Hello, welcome.
Dr. Uday Kumar is the Professor of Pediatrics, Head of KCDU at Sri Ramachandra Institute of Higher Education and Research in Chennai, India. He has been in the field of developmental and behavioral pediatrics for the past 25 years, supporting and monitoring preterm babies, dealing with developmental disorders such as autism, ADHD, learning, and behavioral problems. He is also a part of the post MD fellowship program in developmental and behavioral pediatrics at SRMC Chennai. He has been a dedicated heartfulness practitioner for the past 15 years. He is also a heartfulness trainer who is keen on seeking balance and has a holistic outlook in life. Welcome, Dr. Uday. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity. I feel it's a real good honor, and I really thank the system and all of you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. So now let's continue with the session and delve deeper into the benefits of heartfulness meditation and how it can help the youth today. Over to Dr. Uday now.
Start the session. So I'll be talking about the health benefits of meditation. And this is my family and my wife, Vijay Lakshmi, who's been my biggest helper. And this is Dharini, my daughter, who's currently doing a third year MBBS at Madras Medical College. And incidentally, that is the same college where I finished my UG and PG in pediatrics. And this is Varun, who is currently into 11th standard. So people usually talk about before marriage and after marriage, the changes that takes place in the individual. I would like to say, like before Sajaj Marg and after Sajaj Marg, I think heartfulness practice, a lot of changes I have felt in the way like I used to deal with people and the issues that comes up in your professional practice and a lot of guidance which you get from your inner radar. And I think those are the take-home points which I've got from the system. And I think there are a lot of instances. To quote a few, like I was in Madras Medical College as an assistant professor, like in neonatology, which obviously is a bit of stressful field. But I never used to take the stress. I used to handle things just like that. And I made a switch to developmental pediatrics and quit government service and then joined Ramchandra Medical College. And during that journey, it was not very smooth, like because I had to get my resignation process approved by the government. A bit of issues came up, and I think the conviction which I derived from the system helped me stay strong throughout the process. And at present, I think our child development unit has grown very well, and we are able to offer a fellowship program, which is a post-MD fellowship program. And what I want to tell you is it does a lot of good to the individual and the family. And as the individual, the family, they benefit. I think the whole society as such will be benefiting from the process. And when I Googled this topic, meditation health benefits, these are the things I got it. And I think I could not show, like it was running in several crores. Okay, so what I did is I just picked up 100 benefits of meditation. It's all theoretical stuff. So what I thought is I'll share some of the practical and scientifically proven points in this session. So why I think this current few years, like say since 2019 end, what the world has been going through has been, I think, an event of a century. Like last thing which you can equate is the Spanish flu, which happened way back in 1919 to say 2022. I think it's one of a century event. When I mean one of a century event, it has very big implications in terms of say disrupting peace, mindset, and the way you interact with people, and the uncertainties all around you, economic uncertainty, health problem. So many things are going on around. So what we need to think about is the role of meditation in this time of COVID situation. A lot of points have been discussed in it. And what I would like to talk about is when the stress is all around, you can't change things around you. But as individuals, if you change, I think you can make a change to the society in which you live. And this actually takes into account not only heartfulness meditation, but any other system of meditation. It has proven benefit in terms of, say, improving your stress levels, decreasing it, and then boosting up your immunity, which will help you to fight these infections in a better manner. And I'll be talking about it in the coming slides. In what way meditation is going to improve immunity? I think we all know, like, stress to some extent is good for the health. It increases the cortisol level and other things. But beyond a certain level, what really happens is it disrupts the immune system. COVID infection, even if it occurs for about 100 people, what will happen is not 100 of them will have problems. I think 1 to 2% will have some sort of altered immune response that is happening in their body systems. So what really happens is the body triggers a lot of inflammatory factors. And the most important one among them is the IL-6. You would have heard about this IL-6 in the WhatsApp and other technical medias, and the CRP. And the other factor being nuclear factor Kb. These are all inflammatory factors. And now people are talking about IL-6 antagonists being used to deal with severe COVID infections. Particularly, they call cytokine storm, where the body reacts in a short short period of time in an exaggerated manner. And that is going to harm the system more than the organism. And people are using all those things. What really happens is meditation naturally decreases this IL-6 level. So if you're going to be a person who's been meditating on a long-term basis, all these things are naturally taken care. And the chances, I won't say like if you meditate, you will not have problems. But if you meditate, you will have less likely all those complications through which you may be going on. I, as a person, after several years of meditation, believe in karma. So what really happens is you take your best efforts to stay safe, be let's say isolated, and take all precautions. But still, if infection comes, I think you need to know how to fight it boldly. And whatever that comes out of it, I think we need to take it. What I mean to say is all this IL-6, everything, your meditation naturally takes care if you're going to do it on a long-term basis. And the other important thing is meditation improves your mood. And once your mood is good, and I think that is a natural booster for your immune system. So I think in this COVID scenario, what I would say is you may not be knowing too much about what is interleukin 6, CRP, all those things. But if you take care of basic safety precautions and practice your meditation regularly, I think there are better chances that you'll be able to tide over this next maybe 6 months, people say. But I would say like 1 to 2 years in a safe manner, so that I think overall, I think we'll also be remembering these events. We have survived this. I think that should be the basic thing that's happening. And the other important and interesting study that is done on the effects of heartfulness meditation on healthcare professionals. Because I think people look at COVID situation two ways, like how it produces stress level in general population and how it increases the stress level in healthcare professionals. I think I know like two of you are in the medical field. I don't know about Ritwa Shah. I think two of you are in the medical field. I think they have done this study on the effect of heartfulness meditation on the healthcare professionals as such. I think as healthcare professionals, I have gone through a few studies like which talked about the stress levels of people in different specialties of medicine. What they have found out is those who are in intensive care units and those who are in psychiatry and those who are in, say, cardiothoracic units, and those are the areas where healthcare professionals tend to have a high degree of burnout and less emotional well-being. And this study has looked at the effect of heartfulness meditation on these aspects in healthcare professionals. The sample size is about 35, and it includes both doctors and paramedical people. And what the study says is it reduces the burnout and improves the emotional well-being in these individuals. And they are talking about telomere length. To some extent, for non-medical people also, I'll tell like telomere is nothing but the caps that are there at the end of chromosome. What it does is it has non-coding region. Coding region means it's one that produces genes. Non-coding is one which will not produce gene, But these caps are very important because they will be protecting this gene from, like say, injury that can happen from cell division. Because each time the cell divides, the telomere will get shortened. Okay, so what will happen is when the individual ages, this telomere length as such will become decreased. So this telomere length as such will decrease. So what they have done in this study is they have looked at the telomere length in these healthcare professionals. What they have found out is if the individual has been doing meditation regularly, this telomere length as such is increasing, which meant it to some extent decreases the effect of aging on the cell. Because if the telomere length is decreasing to a large extent, the cell may as such die. So I think these are effects of meditation which you will not be able to perceive on the macro level, but things are happening at the micro level, and the effects of which I think you'll be able to appreciate at the macro level. So this is one interesting thing which can happen after doing meditation regularly. That is, telomere length gets stretched out, which meant the individual's chance to have the effects of aging will be less. Other important thing, I think Harvard Medical School is one of the best institutions in terms of when it comes to offering medical care. What they have done is recently they have done a study on meditation, mainly mindful meditation. What they have done is people who are practicing meditation along with the usual medications, okay, are significantly less likely to have a heart attack or stroke or die within 5 years. Okay. So what they have started doing after the study is they are trying to recommend it along with the diet and exercise. Okay, because they feel like it also decreases the sense of stress and anxiety. I think which you have been sharing, like when somebody troubles you, like how you are able to handle them. All those things I think happens naturally when you do meditation. Maybe it's only that you are trying to pay attention to it and then feel yourself. And I think this study really brings out that meditation can have adjuvant effect, which we call in medicine, if you do it along with taking your medication as per doctor's prescription. Because I think this is one field where still a lot more research is needed, and I think that may take even few decades for it us to understand the effect of real effects of these interventions. The other important thing is epigenetics. This concept, I think it's very dear to my heart because I'm a developmental pediatrician. And many of these conditions, like say autism, ADHD, they call it multifactorial, which means the gene can be a problem, but more than the gene, it's how the environment interacts with the gene and produces problems. I think that is very important. And now more and more studies are talking about how epigenetics affects the genes. So what is epi means above, and the gene means the gene that is coding. But what really happens is these factors, okay, the epigenetics, the study of how cells, they control the gene activity without changing the DNA sequence. Here, the gene will be normal. So you can't call the individual to have genetic disorder because the gene will be normal, but how the gene is being manipulated by environmental influences, okay, which we call as epigenetic factors, it will cause certain changes in the regions above the gene, so that the gene that has to get expressed to act will not be happening, or the gene that has to be suppressed will not be suppressed, so that it will be acting. So, and it will be producing effects which will be like mimicking the effects of the genetic factors. Okay, so why this is very important means these factors are modifiable. Okay, so through epigenetics, we know like environment has influence on the genes, which may be normal. And what we also need to understand is it can affect at all ages. But what is interesting to me is how it affects pregnant women. Because the woman, when she is exposed to these epigenetic factors, when I mean epigenetic factors, I'm not only talking about negative factors, but like say stress or toxin, something like that. What is also important is the positive epigenetic factors, like say a relaxed state, receiving good inputs and terms of say reading good books and doing meditation. those sort of things has effects on the fetus that is growing inside the mother. And that can have either adverse or good effects depending upon what sort of epigenetic factors that is operating. But what is more important for me is once a baby is born and the baby also is exposed to these epigenetic factors and the mother child interaction is very good, that will result in good things that is happening to the child, and these changes can even structurally alter the brain structure as such, and that will have lifelong implications for that individual as a child grows. But what is also interesting point in this is it is transmissible. Not only genetic disorders are transmissible, but epigenetic factors are also transmissible. What I mean to say transmissible is the grandfather may be having an angry mindset, and through epigenetics, he may be inculcating those behaviors in the son, who in turn may be inculcating the same behaviors in the grandchild. Okay, so it gets carried across the generations, and although this may not be genetically a problem, but it may be related to the epigenetics that is involved. And if you can go through our traditions, we feel like the pregnant woman has to spend the later part of her life in a mother's place, where I think it will be related to the stress-free environment for the mother as such. So all those things, I think we need to have a rethink of all those things only based on the studies that are coming up. But what is more interesting for me is it is alterable. If we can give a good epigenetic environment to an individual, I think we can make a big difference in the life of those individuals. And one of the good epigenetic factors which I can think about is meditative practices. It can be anything like listening to a favorite music and seeing some good comedy movies. Everything it can be. I think one of the factors can be your meditation. And this is also one interesting experiment done in Japan by one of the scientists. So what is done is he has gone to a water body which collects all the waste from a city in Japan. So he has what he did is he asked different people, okay, and assess their mindset and asked them to give water for analysis. And he visualized these water molecules under say a high-tech microscopes, which can pick up the crystalline structures of the water molecules. And he also noted down the mental state at the time when they're providing water for analysis. What he found out is the individual has compassion in his emotional trait, or maybe gratitude or wisdom, the water molecular structures resemble these patterns. And if the individual has got anger or maybe is in a hatred mode or has been listening to some dull music, then the forms of water molecules are like this. What he also has done is, as a follow-up of this, he has brought in a few Buddhist monks and then asked people to give water for analysis. And he also asked these monks chant some prayer. Okay, and after that, asked the same set of people to give the water again for analysis. And he found that a brief prayer can change the structure of water molecule from this to this beautiful symmetrical pattern. So, what is this? I'm trying to talk about water when it is going to be all around. What we need to understand is water is not only abundant outside, like throughout, if you take Earth, I think two-thirds or 70% is going to be the water. But what is more important is our human body, 70% of it is also made of water. So what will happen is when we are exhibiting these traits of anger, hatred, or maybe compassion, gratitude, I think it qualitatively changes the structure of water molecules within the body, and that is going to have effect on the individual system as such. And think that is the reason why some of you are telling like I am able to take things in an easy manner, accept things. So those sort of things really changes things at the molecular level itself. And this is quite interesting thing. Only thing, as you do meditation, all this compassion automatically happens, sense of gratitude happens. And once you start doing meditation, what really happens is your gray matter, which is the one which say concerns your cognition and intellect, the thickness of it keeps increasing. People who do meditation for many years, their cortical thickness as such increases. And people who have Alzheimer's disease, their cortical thickness keeps decreasing. So I think in a way, if you're going to do meditation on a regular basis, you can avoid all those neurodegenerative conditions like, or at least postpone those conditions to some extent. And what is more important at this point of time is we all know what compassion is. Like you feel, you put yourself the other person's shoes and look from their perspective. I think that sort of discussion came up when one of you were talking on those lines. But what is more important at this point of time, particularly in COVID era, is we need to practice what is called as self-compassion. Any individual should try to first love their own self. I think that also came up in the discussion because I feel like you're all very lucky people who have been doing meditation, observing all these effects, monitoring and trying to give some words to it. Okay, so if you love yourself, then only you'll be able to love others. I think that is a very important point. So people at this turbulent period like COVID should try to practice self-compassion, and then compassion automatically will be spilling out. Okay, so I think this is a very important point which we need to take up. And I think when I am talking, I am also maybe thinking of something in the back of mind. And when you are listening, I think you'll also be having a lot of thoughts that may be happening to you. And I think we, to some extent, lead our life with thoughts happening in the background. Studies have shown that there are about 50,000 thoughts that are happening in a individual's life in 24 hours. That roughly amounts to about, like say, if you divide by 25, it's about 2,500 thoughts every hour. So every minute you are bombarded with about 40, 45, 40, 41 thoughts. Okay, so what is this thoughts doing? Are you able to remember all those things? May not be. Because these thoughts are said to be, like say, occurring in the background, superficial, and they are repetitive. They don't have any purpose. Okay, and it's going to be on the negative side majority of the time. So what my master Babuji used to say is, these thoughts are going to occupy your mind. Okay, and you are going to sow those thoughts, and it is going to reap up and show its results. Better you sow your mind with good thoughts. Okay, and that will go a long way in improving things. The other thing, this is also done as part of heartfulness meditation trials, experiments, where I think they proved that meditation, through meditation, the thoughts will be less. For people who are on the non-medical side, this is nothing but the PET scan which looks at metabolism of the brain. These red areas are hotspots, which are metabolically more active, and blue areas are cold spots, which are metabolically less active. What they have done is, before meditation, they have taken these scans. After meditation, they have taken these scans. What they have found out is, within just 10 minutes of heartfulness meditation, you can to some extent reduce the metabolism in the brain, which meant the thoughts that is happening in the background is getting reduced. Okay, so this is one thing by which you can clear cut tell that your thoughts as such will be reducing. And I think you would have had experience like sometimes when you sit in meditation, will be like totally still, no thoughts that is happening. So, and sometimes when thoughts happen also, it's good in our system of meditation, which when it takes things out of your subconscious mind and throwing it out into consciousness in a way. But what is more important is, if you're going to do meditation regularly, the thoughts will be less. But what is more important is an individual reacts to any situation only in the pauses that happens between the thoughts. Okay, so when the thoughts are going to be less, you'll have more areas or avenues where in which you'll be using your brain power in a more effective manner. That's why people who do meditation regularly, they'll be able to finish up their work in a more efficient manner. And I think this point also come up during the discussions, which I think you are having it before, like you're able to do your job quickly, easily. All those things, I think this is the basis for which I'm just trying to give some understanding to it. And sleep issues, I think this is quite common among children, because I'm a pediatrician and we have done a study and we found that even 20 to 30% of children tend to have sleep problems. And these sleep problems are becoming more and more in this COVID scenario, where children are exposed more to gadget time. And when they're exposed more to gadget time, all those blue light, all those things has its own effect on the brain structures, and their exposure to outdoor, like say melatonin, which gets naturally secreted when you're exposed to sunlight. That also is a problem in this COVID time, because the lockdown, you are shut within the house. So what really happens is sleep problems are going to be more in the coming years. And is sleep very important? It's very, very important, because it is a period of, because the individual spends about one third of his life in sleep. And nature doesn't have this sort of important component which occupies about 25 to 33% of an individual's life. A lot of things are happening in sleep, particularly at night. Their studies have found out that the drainage system from the CSF, which is called as arachnoid villi, they engorge in size during sleep, which meant it is naturally getting used to remove more toxic chemicals out of the brain, okay, during night in sleep. And what the result is, next day morning, your brain will be more fresh and metabolically tuned up to take up the stress or workload, whatever you have for the next day. So this happens naturally when you sleep very well at night. And what is more important is melatonin is also synthesized in deep sleep. And this melatonin has a lot of effects. Apart from improving the sleep as such, it can also have effects on other hormone-related cancer, because it calms the other hormones like estrogen. And it can also act as an immune booster, and it has antioxidant effect. But these effects of melatonin can be had from meditation, and which itself improves the sleep quality. And my master used to say, like, say, half an hour of meditation maybe equal to about 1 hour of sleep. It can compensate to that extent, but it can't, like, say, misuse that system. But to some extent, if you're doing meditation, to some extent can compensate for your lack of sleep. And what they have done is, one more experiment has been done. Okay, what they have done is, Buddhist monks who have been doing meditation for thousands of hours, like say 10,000 hours, 2,000 hours. They have been subjected to EEG studies, where they recorded the EEG of these individuals when they are going in for meditation. What we need to understand is, when an individual is in awake state, the EEG waves generally will be like alpha or beta, depending upon whether the individual closes his eyes or not. These are fast waves. For non-medical people, these are fast waves. But when an individual goes into deep sleep, we develop what are called as slow waves or delta waves. And these delta waves are very important for an individual. What really happens is, these Buddhist monks, when they go into meditation, within the first few minutes, they start developing this delta wave. Because when you have the sleep cycle, you feel like very small amount, like roughly 20-25% of time only individuals spends in the deep sleep. Rest of the time it will all be light sleep, or say rapid eye movement sleep. All those things may be happening, but they are really puzzled at the way, like, how these people are going into delta waves within the first few minutes of meditation. And what is more heartening for me to know is, people who start doing heartfulness meditation, maybe in the initial first few days or few months, they are able to experience these changes in the EEG, which people may be requiring many years of meditation to develop. And I think that is the beauty of the transmission that may be happening, which we call pranahuti, and the effect of which I think may be the reason for this. Within the first few days, their brain waves gets, like, that gets tuned into delta wave. That's the reason why, like, although while doing meditation, you'll be awake, but the brain will have delta wave. But after meditation, you'll be feeling more fresh. Whereas after sleep, you'll be feeling not that very fresh, and maybe dowy you'll be feeling. Okay. So what is more important is, meditation has a lot of effects which has implications for good quality sleep for the individual. And I think all of us at some point of time would have had this emotion, fear. Okay, like fear of exams. Okay, it's nothing but an unpleasant feeling or emotion, I think, which we all would have experienced at some point of time. But it all depends on how we are using our courage to overcome this fear. And sometimes when you act from your heart, I think all these things may happen automatically. We know of a small story, folk law from Tamil Nadu, which says like a woman is able to chase out a tiger with the help of a broom when it comes to pounce on a baby. Okay, this may appear theoretical, but a lot of things can happen when you are courageous. Okay, what are the key aspects of courage? Maybe like letting go of things. I think one of you, all these things have come up in the discussion. When somebody is acting mean, you're letting go of that individual. That itself is a courage. It's not a weakness. That you're letting go. Like from a point of view, like you allow that individual to be as they are and treat them as they are and letting go of them, that itself is a good sign of courage. And to change as per the need that is required, that is flexibility. We call it cognitive flexibility. That also is a courage. And to stand strong when everything around falls, I think that is also mark of the courage. And to live in the now, that itself is a big thing. Like I think that is very much required in this COVID time. I think we need to survive this phase, and I think for that we need a lot of courage. And I like to go from down to above. Like courage and confidence, they are both interdependent. Only when you're going to be confident, you're going to be courageous. You can't have confidence uh, and you may be expecting courage also happening. That may not be happening. But how confidence develops, it's a outcome of say commitment. Like you have to be committed uh, to it. Okay, and how that comes, confidence comes. It's a mixture of your knowledge as well as your skill. Like say, as a medical profession, if I'm confident about my clinical judgment or thing, I need to have adequate knowledge and good practice of skill to back that up. Okay, so but what we need to do is to develop these two, we need to avoid all these five factors. So what are those five factors? So they are laziness, okay, and maybe disorganized. Okay. Yeah, laziness, being disorganized, impatience, lack of focus, procrastination, that is keep postponing things. I think those sort of things I think we need to avoid. And if you are going to avoid that and practice knowledge and your skill sets, and think over a period of time you'll be able to exhibit a good amount of confidence and courage may be happening simultaneously. And through meditative practice, I think we'll be able to stay focused on a thing and maybe put in more effort, and to some extent you can develop all these good qualities. I think to some extent I'm coming to the end of the topic. A bird sitting on a branch is not very much bothered. Okay. Yeah, it's never afraid of the branch breaking because the trust of the bird is not in the branch, but in its ability to fly off when the branch breaks. Okay, so what I would suggest is always believe in yourself. When I'm telling yourself, maybe that self can be a small letter, can also be a capital letter. Small letter means individual, and if it is going to be a capital letter, it is a deep sense of self that is there within you. And if you have belief in that, I think your life journey will be very smooth. And once again, I take thank you all for the opportunity that is given to me. And I think we'll have a short session of meditation, and maybe we can take questions at the end, or we can have questions now and then take meditation sessions.
Sure. As you say, Dr. Uday, thank you so much for this session. You can have the questions now or at the end, as you please.
Whichever is comfortable, like I think we can have questions now and then maybe we'll have a short practice of meditation. Then we'll wind up.
Sure. Let's do that. So we'll end this session on a beautiful note with meditation. So we just had a few questions for you. First one being, how do we convince our friends who don't meditate to start meditating?
I think that's a very tough question to answer because I think my department, I may be the only person who's meditating. What can happen when you do meditation on a regular basis is people know the changes that is happening in the way you are reacting to situation. And maybe that could be the reason for them to step up into and ask you, like, say, what is really happening in you, and that may be the good beginning. And the other thing is when something undue happens, like say wrong thing happens around you, how you're able to weather that storm. I think that also could be one of the examples. And I think for me, I think the friends I got introduced to artfulness practice only through my colleague, because who happened to ask me to come to Babuji Memorial Ashram. And I had a look at the meditation hall and looked at the picture of Babuji, who instantly is there in the picture behind me. And one look at Babuji, I think I really don't know the name of master at the time as Babuji, but one look at him made some changes in my heart, and I thought this is a place I need to stay. I think it can work both ways. Like I got introduced through my friend and colleague, and it's one of the tough questions. And I think each person has their own destiny when it comes to taking up certain practices like meditation. I think if not now, at some point of time, your friends may be thinking about, okay, Vatsala did meditation and advised me, and maybe this is the right time I have to give it a try. And those sort of things have happened in people around me also. Like, because my wife started taking up meditation after few years after I have taken up meditation. So maybe the changes that happens in you makes others to get into it. And what our master used to say is, once you are starting the meditation thing, you are sowing the seeds in the individual. That may grow up immediately, that may come up many years later. But definitely at some point, if the individual is destined, it will come up. So we can be
Yes,
confident about it. And whether that individual comes into it or not, I think it's guided more by the circumstances around that individual. And I think the changes that happens in us makes people to be aware of the system.
yes, I completely agree with you on these terms. And what we are and how we behave in front of people has an influence on them, and they see us and they're like, okay, if you meditate, this is how it will be, and we should also start meditating.
I think many of my students have taken up meditation because the way like I am dealing with them when they do errors is different from the way others are reacting to when they are making the same errors. Maybe I think, but that change takes a lot of time. That will be last. We are only sowing seeds.
Yes, definitely. So, one more thing we wanted to ask, how do we maintain regularity in our practice?
As a doctor, I think even now I'm a bit, struggling. I don't know whether I'm the right person to answer this. But I think the days in which you are not meditating are the days where your body system requires meditation. I think that I think we need to keep it in mind. And sometimes what really happens is morning once we get up, we start brushing. So certain things we do it as a habit. I think once we inculcate this, it's an habit. I think that will be very great for us. I think we should make it a habit to do meditation, not at a fixed time, at least around the time. I think that will be good. I think
Yes.
we have to make it as an habit. In that context, I would like to talk about. I think when it comes to thought, I thought I'll talk about it. There is one excellent book. I think many of you would have read, The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, where he talks about how thoughts are getting converted into beliefs. Okay, the thought patterns which have becomes beliefs. These belief patterns, once it happens for a period of time, becomes a habit, and then the habits turn into automatic action. I think for regularity, I think we need to make it. We need to sow the thought the day before, and maybe change it into a belief, and then habit, and then action.
So, about this,
I am not very regular, so maybe I'm not able to take this question.
yeah, so about regularity, so how do we juggle between our work and college and jobs? So, how do we become regular when we have so much? Because being a doctor, your schedule must be very hectic. So, how do you manage to, whenever you are able to meditate, even if it's five,
uh,
10
I
minutes,
think I
how do
take
you
that
take out?
opportunity to do meditation as and when it happens. And I think there are some challenges that are happening in our schedule. And if you are getting enrolled into those practices, the possibility that you'll be sitting in a particular time of the day for meditation, I think that probability increases. And what I've learned from those context challenges is once you participate in it, then it becomes automatically triggered. Like, so even I may be preparing PowerPoints lectures up to even 1:32, but when it comes to like say 6 o'clock, automatically during the challenge period, I'll be waking up. So I think your system gets tuned automatically on. I think it's more related to those thoughts, beliefs, and habit, which ultimately turns into action. I think we need to follow.
Yes, definitely. So, friends,
That work job balance. I think
yes,
what benefit. I think you have all told the benefits in more easy manner, a clear manner. But what I would like to add is one thing which I have developed after doing meditation is I have tried to live in the present. Okay, so when I'm in the hospital, I'm only concerned about what is happening in the hospital. Once I come to my house, I'm only concerned about what is happening in my house. And once I go to my clinic, I'm just concerned about what is happening in the clinic. And that sort of mindset somehow I have developed after I've started doing meditation. And that is one thing I think improves your efficiency and work which you are doing. Plus, it also has effect in the sense like reduces your thoughts because once you're in the house thinking about what is happening in the hospital, okay, that leads to a lot of issues. And I think that is one thing which I would like to add to what other people have told. I'm able to live in the present, and I'm really thankful to the system for that. Well, now I'm talking to you. My thing is focused only on this. I'm not thinking about any other thing. And that I think is my master's grace. I think.
yes, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
So,
And
any
any
other,
other questions?
yes, any other questions from Rutva or Rushali?
I have one question, like how to improve this journey, how to improve the experience. Like as you know that I am a beginner now. So
Yeah, there is no question, no thing as beginner and one who's been doing meditation for 20 years, 30 years. What master says is do your job, leave the result to him. Okay, don't worry much about what experience you have, and because see, we may be traveling the same train, okay, and the same side of the window. Each one may be seeing different things out of the window. But what is more important is, are you boarding at Chennai and are you getting down at Bangalore safely? So that is more important. So we'll not be very much worried about what other people are seeing a butterfly. I'm Mr. Butterfly. I'm seeing this, what the other person is not seeing. Have conviction on your own system, carry on with your meditation, have trust on one person who's a master, and I think rest of it will be taken care of. And each person's experience will be changing depending upon the state in which they are also. Enjoy those experiences, and as another participants told, you maintain a journal, and down that period of time, I think you'll be able to figure out the meaning for those experiences which you have had now. Some of the experiences you may not be able to know why it happens now. Maybe you'll be able to correlate it several years later. So journal entry is very good.
wonderful. Thank
So
you.
Anala, you feel comfortable with whatever experiences you have, you feel happy about it. And you just do it as an experiment. Before the meditation, how was your mindset, and after the meditation, how was your mindset? You feel comfortable and happy about it. Even if you feel there is no change in your mindset, some changes are happening at cellular level or molecular level, which we may not be able to know. So do our meditation as per the practice and leave the rest.
Definitely.
The
I will
master.
implement that thing.
All right. So, shall we move on to the meditation session now,
Yeah.
Dr. Uday?
Yeah. If you want, sit comfortably. Close your eyes gently. Please start meditation. observe.
Thank you, Dr. Uday.
Thank you all for the opportunity. All the best for your future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was really wonderful.
All the best for you.
It's so refreshing.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So, on behalf of the Holistic Wellness team, I would like to thank you, Dr. Uday, for joining us today and for taking out time from your busy schedule and for sharing your valuable thoughts and insights and all those interesting facts with us. That was truly a wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us today. We would like to welcome you all to join our Holistic Wellness family through our various social media platforms. You can connect with us on the Infinite Youth Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, as well as our Holistic Wellness Facebook page for more updates on health and wellness. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you.